This is every Premier League owner disaster explained. Who are the Glazers? An American family best known for owning the NFL's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In 2005, they took over Manchester United, arguably the biggest football club in the world. But it wasn't a straightforward purchase. They used a leveraged buyout, which is a fancy term for borrowing money to buy something, then making that something pay off the debt. So what happened? The moment the Glazers arrived, United went from being debt-free to being £500 million in the red. That debt has ballooned to over £1 billion today, thanks to interest payments, dividends, and financial mismanagement. They didn't just saddle the club with debt. They withdrew over £1 billion in dividends over the years while leaving the stadium, Old Trafford, to decay. Once the pride of English football, the stadium now leaks when it rains, literally. Meanwhile, United's on-field performance has plummeted. After Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2013, the club burned through managers, failed transfer strategies, and overpaid flops like Alexis Sanchez and Paul Pogba. The fans fought back. In 2010, the green and gold movement started. Fans wore the original colors of the club as protest. In 2021, when the Glazers signed up for the failed European Super League, things hit boiling point. Fans stormed Old Trafford and forced a match against Liverpool to be postponed, an unprecedented protest. Even today, chants of Glazers out echo through every match. They've turned the world's biggest football brand into a cautionary tale of corporate greed. Mike Ashley is the billionaire behind Sports Direct, a UK discount sportswear chain. In 2007, he bought Newcastle United for £134 million. Fans were hopeful. They thought Ashley would bring financial security and ambition. What they got was the opposite. Ashley didn't understand football culture, and worse, didn't care. He ran the club like one of his retail stores. Cost-cutting, zero communication, and no long-term planning. He once appointed Joe Kinnear, a manager who hadn't worked in top-level football for over a decade and couldn't even pronounce the names of his players. His biggest insult? Renaming the historic St. James Park to the Sports Direct Arena. That was sacred ground for Newcastle fans, and he turned it into a billboard. He sold the club's best players, like Yohan Cabaye and Andy Carroll, without investing properly in replacements. Relegation followed in 2009 and again in 2016. Ashley was infamously tight with money. Despite Newcastle regularly packing out their stadium with 50,000 plus fans, he spent less than clubs like Burnley on transfers. Even his managerial appointments felt half-hearted. Steve Bruce, a journeyman manager, was handed the job with zero excitement from fans. When Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund bought the club in 2021, fans literally partied in the streets. For them, anything, even controversial state ownership, was better than Ashley. In April 2021, 12 of Europe's biggest clubs, including 6 from the Premier League, tried to change football forever. Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham announced they were joining a new European Super League. It was supposed to be a closed competition. No promotion or relegation, just permanent membership for the richest clubs. No more risk, no more upsets. It was pure greed. The idea was to mimic the American franchise system, where big teams are always guaranteed to play. But football isn't the NBA. This is a sport built on merit, history, and open competition. The backlash was immediate and furious. Fans protested outside stadiums. Pundits on live TV lost their minds. Politicians got involved. Even Prince William tweeted his disapproval. Chelsea fans blocked their team bus from entering the stadium. Liverpool players released a group statement against it. And within 48 hours, every English club pulled out. The Super League died before it even kicked a ball. It exposed the disconnect between owners and fans. These billionaires thought football was a business. Fans reminded them, it's a culture. Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea in 2003 and changed football forever. A Russian oil tycoon with close ties to Vladimir Putin, Abramovich poured over £1.5 billion into the club. He turned Chelsea from an underachieving London side into a European powerhouse. He hired big-name managers like Jose Mourinho and Carlo Ancelotti. He signed stars like Didier Drogba, Eden Hazard, and N'Golo Kante. Chelsea won it all: Premier League titles, FA Cups, and 2 Champions Leagues. But success came at a price. Abramovich loaned Chelsea money, not gifted it, and that would matter when the world changed. In 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. The UK government froze Abramovich's assets, citing his ties to Putin. Chelsea suddenly couldn't sell tickets, merchandise, or negotiate contracts. They were legally frozen. Sponsors dropped out, and players considered leaving.
Abramovich was forced to sell. Todd Boehly's consortium took over. But the uncertainty left a mess, and fans questioned how sustainable Chelsea's success had ever been. Abramovich brought glory, but also made the club dependent on his wealth and politics. In 2010, Blackburn Rovers were a mid-table Premier League side with a proud history, including a Premier League title in 1995. Then came the Venkies, an Indian poultry conglomerate who bought the club for £23 million. The problem? They had absolutely no idea how to run a football club. They made bizarre promises like bringing in Ronaldinho and David Beckham. That never happened. Instead, they sacked manager Sam Allardyce, who had the team safe in mid-table, and replaced him with Steve Keane, a man with no top-flight experience. It quickly spiraled. Relegation in 2012 was just the start. Under the Venkies, Blackburn became a chaotic mess. Agents allegedly ran the show, making signings without consulting managers. Keane clung to his job despite fan outrage, backed by ownership that seemed out of touch and largely absent from public view. In one interview, the Venkies chairman admitted he didn't know relegation from the Premier League meant less TV money. That lack of basic understanding doomed the club. Protests turned toxic. Fans marched with chicken costumes, a direct mock at the Venkies' poultry business. Home attendance dropped. The team dropped again, all the way to League One, the third tier of English football. It was a fall from grace, triggered by the owners who bought a club without understanding it, then drove it into the ground. Stan Kroenke is an American billionaire who owns the LA Rams, Denver Nuggets, and Colorado Rapids. In 2011, he became the majority shareholder of Arsenal, one of England's most historic clubs. To say fans weren't thrilled would be an understatement. Nicknamed Silent Stan, Kroenke rarely spoke to media or fans. And while Arsenal needed leadership, investment, and ambition, they got none of that. Instead, Kroenke used the club like a self-sustaining business. He refused to invest his own money and focused on keeping the club financially stable, even if it meant mediocrity on the pitch. This came after Arsenal had just finished building the Emirates Stadium, which left them financially constrained. Fans expected that once the debt was paid off, the club would start spending. But instead of pushing forward, Arsenal drifted. Key players left: Robin van Persie, Samir Nasri, Cesc Fabregas, while the replacements were often underwhelming. Worse, the club went trophyless for nearly a decade. They became the punchline of the fourth place is a trophy meme. Then came the Super League saga. Kroenke was one of the driving forces behind Arsenal's inclusion. The backlash was ferocious. Even Arsenal legends like Thierry Henry spoke out. Fans protested outside the Emirates, demanding Kroenke sell the club. Despite minor recent improvements, the relationship between Kroenke and the fans remains icy. Arsenal might be competitive again, but the years of stagnation under Kroenke's silent rule left scars. Peter Ridsdale wasn't a billionaire. He was a chairman who believed ambition would bring glory. And in the early 2000s, he gambled Leeds United's entire future on qualifying for the Champions League. Under his leadership, Leeds borrowed heavily to fund big-name transfers: Rio Ferdinand, Robbie Fowler, and more. The idea was simple: qualify for the Champions League consistently, and the money would pay for itself. But football doesn't work like that. Leeds missed out on Champions League qualification in 2002, and suddenly, the house of cards collapsed. They had borrowed over £100 million based on projected future success that never arrived.
Ridsdale famously said the club had lived the dream, but the dream turned into a nightmare. They were forced to sell all their best players, including Ferdinand and Jonathan Woodgate. By 2004, Leeds were relegated. In 2007, they dropped to League One. At one point, the club literally sold their training ground and stadium to pay off debts. Leeds, a club with one of the biggest fan bases in England, spent 16 years outside the Premier League. All because one man bet big and lost. Before Liverpool became the powerhouse they are today, they came dangerously close to ruin, thanks to two American businessmen, Tom Hicks and George Jallet. In 2007, the duo bought Liverpool for around £220 million using a leveraged buyout, similar to what the Glazers did at Manchester United. They promised a spade in the ground for a new stadium and pledged to back manager Rafa Benitez. But the promises were empty. They couldn't stand each other, literally holding separate meetings with staff. Instead of funding success, they loaded the club with debt and tried to refinance it multiple times. Liverpool stagnated. Benitez clashed with the board. Transfer targets were missed, and behind the scenes, the club owed hundreds of millions to banks. By 2010, Liverpool was on the brink of administration. The fans were furious. A campaign group called Spirit of Shankly mobilized massive protests. Former players like Jamie Carragher spoke out. It took a legal battle to remove Hicks and Gillette. The High Court forced a sale to John Henry's Fenway Sports Group, who cleared the debt and began the rebuild. Within a decade, Liverpool were back on top. Champions League winners, Premier League winners, but fans haven't forgotten how close they came to the edge. In football, owners hold the keys to glory or collapse, and sometimes the biggest danger to your club isn't a rival, it's the person signing the checks. What do you think is the worst ownership disaster in football history? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.